This is webinar 4. This is the third level of our the third level of our Level Up series, right? So we've covered a few others. This is going to get into the basic strategy behind how we execute our ABM campaigns, and this is the 5-step account-based formula. You can see these little guys pop up. A little bit about me, a very little bit about me. I'm Kyle Dugan, Director of Digital Marketing here at 6th Sense. I've been here since March 2020. I've seen a lot of growth. I've seen a lot of changes and a lot of really interesting updates and add-ons to our platform. So like I said, this is webinar 4. This is the third level. And we've got a lot of other webinars coming up, right? So we're going to have these things running throughout the year. The next one is on 9/25, and that's going to be ABM campaign creation and execution. That's going to be another really good one. That's going to really tie in well with what we're going to cover today. And then you can see we've got a few others there that are getting scheduled out. So check your emails, sign up if you're interested. We've got a lot we can help you out with here in this series. So a little bit about 6th Sense. We were founded a decade ago, and it was really basically all trying to answer one simple question. Wouldn't sales and marketing be a lot easier if you knew who was looking for your product? And obviously that's a difficult question to answer, but we have a platform that can help you answer that question. And then beyond that, what we've come to now is the which, when, who, how, and what. So we can now look at which accounts are the best fit, how to segment them, what accounts are in market. That's part of our predictive in-market buying stages. What part of the buying journey they're in, who's on the buying team, who to contact next, how to contact them, what they care about, and then the what. And this goes even a step further now with some of our AI capabilities and generative AI, and that's what to say and even say it for you. So that's a little bit about 6th Sense and our history. And let's move on to our steps. So here they are, all kind of spaced out for you so you can see them all. We've got select the best accounts. That's going to be the first step. Know about them. I love the Mario block there. Engage the right way, collaborate with sales, and track real stuff. So if you really want to boil it down, those are the 5 steps. And then I'm going to speak to you a little bit about how we execute on those 5 steps. And to do that, I'm going to start with kind of an overview of what the steps are. Select the best accounts. So what does that really mean? For us in ABM, that really means taking a look at historical data to develop what we call the ICP. That's going to be your ideal customer profile. There's a lot of different components you can put into that, but what we usually find that customers and we do is we look at industries, locations, employee size, revenue size, and then if you can find it out, how they heard about you. That's not always going to be something you can find out easily. It kind of reminds me of the old days where you would go and you would purchase something, and the last question on any form was, how did you hear about us? But if you get that data, it's pretty helpful. So selecting the best accounts is not just about looking for an ICP and finding out what accounts you should be going after. It's also going to help focus your sales and marketing team on the same accounts. That's going to be key here, and we're going to talk a lot about the collaboration between sales and marketing, but that's also for another slide. Now, one of the keys also is AI and predictive analytics can look at your ICP and further narrow down which accounts are closest to making a purchase. What that goes back to is what I talked about with that predictive AI piece. Specifically for 6th Sense, we've got in-market stages that we can look at to tell where accounts are in their buying journey. When we select the best accounts, and this is going to be all through our platform and kind of how we set it up, we start with creating a segment. And a segment is basically a group of accounts built through what you filter off of. And for us, with ICP, like I said, one one of the ones that I think most companies use is employee range and revenue range. And you can see there's a ton of different filters over there on the left. You can sort by industries. You can sort by intent. There's a lot of things you can choose. But when building that ICP, you really want to plug in that historical data that you have about what accounts are purchasing your product. That one's fairly easy, not too hard. And then also, as I speak to this, not all of this has to be used through a platform. We, of course, obviously use 6sense. Some of this is able to be done without any technology kind of add-ons or anything like that. But they do make it easier. And I'll kind of call that out as well, because that's something I like to mention. Now, this is the second step. This is all about knowing about those accounts. And what does that mean? That means you're looking for insights about these accounts. Like, what are they searching for? What technology do they currently use? Does it work with yours? Does it not? Who is on their buying committee? Is it 3 people? Is it 10? Is it 12 people? You got to have an idea of how many people you really need to get in front of and how many people you need to talk to. And then how are they going in their buying journey, right? And that goes back to that predictive AI piece, which you'll probably get sick of hearing me talk about, and that's okay. You can put it in the chat. We've also got a Q&A, just so I don't forget, over there on the side as well. So if you have questions, if you want to pop it into that Q&A, we'll cover that shortly. So this data is going to be used in every step of our ABM journey. These insights are absolutely crucial to make sure that we're speaking to these accounts in a way that they want to be spoken to and in a way that actually helps them on their buying journey. One of the things that we found lately with one of our reports is that something like 93% of accounts don't reach out to sales until they're ready to buy. And so that means by the time a lot of people are contacting them, they already know what they want. They already know what they're going to go with. So this, knowing about them, knowing about these stages is key to getting in front of these accounts before they know what they want. So when we say know about them in our platform, some of the stuff that we look at is whenever you go back and you create a segment with those filters that I just showed, you get a lot of data. And this is just a sample of some of that data. And I've highlighted kind of here what we looked at for this campaign. So top generic words, we're looking at ABM, AI chatbot, AI assistant. AI is pretty frequent in there. Top keyword groups, ABM and marketing persona. So we know that these accounts are interested in ABM. They're interested in AI, right? We know that they're looking for these things. We can see that some of them have been hit by 6sense media accounts, right? They've had that. We've had website visitors. We've got a lot of different information here to use. Now, the next step is going to be particularly where I come into play as the director of digital marketing, and that's engaging the right way. And what that means, and that's not just ads, but I'm going to speak fairly heavy to ads. We know about these accounts. We have data on them. We want to give them a high value experience that's really tailored to what we know about them. If we know that they've been on particular web pages that are high intent traffic towards AI, we want to deliver an AI message that's right for them. And we can use all that data between the keywords, the intent, and those buying stages to filter out and know what we best should serve them. So it's all about creating customized content that's delivered, and here's the key, on the right channel at the right time. So if we know that they're in an early stage, in market stage, so we've got awareness, consideration, decision, and purchase. And that's what we really focus on here at 6sense. If we know they're in that awareness stage, they're just starting to understand and look for a solution around AI, a solution around ABM. Well, once we understand that, we can tailor our content by looking at our blogs, reports, and things like that really give a basic overview of how to use ABM, why it's important, and what other companies are doing with it to serve to them. Now, the key to some of this is predictive AI and automation are needed to successfully scale and automate these programs. This is one that is very tough to do without technology. I won't say impossible. Back in the day, whenever I was early on in like 2013, we ran some ABM plays with LinkedIn, right? You can target by companies. That doesn't mean we knew anything about them. We knew what we could research publicly. We didn't know what they were looking for. We had no idea if they had been on our site. We just kind of flew blindly, and that just doesn't have to be the way these days. And so here's a couple examples of some ads that we've run to accounts from that segment that we knew were interested in ABM and AI. These went to a couple of different accounts. One was set up to kind of get people more interested in ABM, and that's going to be that marketing pipeline ad. And then the other one was going out to people that were interested in AI emails, which is something else that we do. And we've got an ad for that as well. All right. So this is going to be the big one. This is going to be the one I don't plan on spending the most time with, but I probably will end up speaking to this the most. Collaborate with sales. This is, first off, this is way easier said than done. And this is just good old fashioned teamwork. Really, that's all it is. It does help to have something that you can use as a source of truth. So I'll show some examples of that within our platform. But really, this is going to be just your teams setting up time to work together to make sure that the accounts are getting, sales outreach, they're getting marketing campaigns, and basically just kind of checking on each other and making sure that both teams are doing their job. This is one of the areas I think that most companies probably have the toughest time with. I can definitely say in my history of working on marketing, it's been one of the areas that most companies have definitely kind of just lacked. A lot of times we get marketing and sales teams that are siloed. And whenever we get that, we tend to find that they don't work together, which means a lot of times, you set up those accounts, they start working different accounts. We don't like this account for this reason. Well, we like this one. And it just gets haywire. This is just good old fashioned communication. Typically, I recommend that you pick someone on your marketing team, you pick someone on your sales team, and you say, hey, look, you two, you're going to meet once a week. We're going to go over what we've been working on, what they're working on, and you're going to see where it matches up. And building that trust is really key here. And like I said, there's platforms, there's technology that can help simplify. They can help put you, kind of in that trust zone, being a single source of truth for what's going on with those accounts and where they're getting worked. But really, this all boils down to just old-fashioned connecting, communication, and building a relationship. That said, how we collaborate with sales, aside from just, like I said, having our meetings, we've got a few different areas within our platform that sales and marketing can look to see what is going on with an account. And so the first screenshot there with the red square, that's taking a look at our 6sense dashboard. If you were to just type in a company name, you would see information pop up that's going to give you all sorts of stuff like activities. That's going to be like website activities or keyword activities, scoring trends, timeline, intent. And then over there on the left, you'll see campaigns. If you click on that, you will see what campaigns that account is in. And so if sales has a question for me and they say, hey, Kyle, I'm really curious about what we're doing with Apple, just to throw that out there. And they really want to know, what's Apple seeing? Well, they can hop in the platform. They can do a quick search, pull up Apple, look, and they can see what campaigns they've been involved in. And so they know that marketing is working that account. If that's like one of their key accounts, they're really going hard after them, they can pull that up and look. Additionally, down there on the other screenshot, you can see that is a iframe within Salesforce. So if your salespeople aren't necessarily in 6sense, if they're not really wanting to get in the platform and move around, that's okay. Within Salesforce, they can go in there, they can look in our iframe, and when they pull up that account and go down, they can see that there's activities taking place. They can click on it and they can see, okay, what was going on? It was a marketing campaign, right? They've got a timeline they can look at to see when that account's being touched, either by a campaign and impressions or through an email. Additionally, there's also sales outreach things in there too. So marketing people, if you want to put it right back on sales and hold them accountable, you can hop in there, go to that iframe and take a look as well. That's going to be the big one. I think that's going to be the hardest one for most teams. And I think it all goes back to just, good old fashioned sleeves up communication work. Now, the last step, this one is interesting because it's something most marketers are already doing, right? We already track stuff. We already have data. We're running digital campaigns. And the beauty of that is there is data galore on what happens with our campaigns. When it comes to ABM, though, one of the things we talk about is not all data is equal, right? You're going to have some metrics that make more sense when you're going more towards a MQL and a lead focused approach. That doesn't necessarily make as much sense when you're doing ABM. And so a lot of what we look at with ABM is different KPIs. We're looking at accounts engaged, accounts in market, and then we're also looking at that velocity through buying stages. And then, of course, the almighty pipeline, right? That's the big one for us. Realistically, that's the big one for every marketing team. That's the one that everyone really focuses on. And then this also goes back to collaborating with sales. And that's going to be, having the same metrics, having metrics that everyone can look at and track and use as their North Star. That's going to help keep people really focused and really together on what goals they're going for. And that's going to help with that collaboration. And that's going to help kind of pull those teams together. That's kind of also a tough one. I know in my history, I've worked at a lot of places where my goal was completely separate of sales, and that just, it doesn't help. So if you're going to an ABM method, you're going to start doing this. If there's anything I really would suggest you take from this presentation so far, having shared goals, collaborating with sales, two hardest parts. There's a lot of technology that can fill in the gaps on everything else, but setting up those goals, building those relationships is going to come down to you and your teams. And so with that said, let's look at some of the real stuff that we track. And this is within 6 Sense. And I'll be the first to say there's a lot that we track also in Salesforce. I didn't want to, one, blow up all that stuff. And two, I really don't want to put a lot of that in there because there's so much custom stuff you do in Salesforce and build dashboards for. People might not have it. But within 6 Sense, this is something that we can look at through campaigns, right? And so one of the things that we look at is average increase in account engagement, accounts newly engaged, and accounts with increased engagement. And these are key also depending on your ad strategy. So if you were going after all new accounts that had never heard of you, you would want to see a pretty high number in that accounts newly engaged. And then if you're going after accounts that are in that in-market stage that have interacted with you before, but not a lot, you really want to see that increased engagement, and you want to see that average increase in account engagement. So there's a lot of different metrics that you're going to look at depending on your strategy and kind of how your campaigns are set up. Now, with that said, you can see down there below, we've also got some metrics based around pipeline. And on the left, we've got accounts with no pipeline previous to the campaign running. And then we've got accounts with pipeline once the campaign kicked off and started. And then there also you get reached, engaged, increased engagement, pipeline, and then closed won. And so for this campaign, you can see closed won. There were 9 accounts that we closed deals with that had no pipeline prior to the campaign start, and 24 total that had pipeline running and were also part of the campaign. So overall, these are some of the metrics that we would look at for tracking real stuff, as we say. Very different than MQLs and looking at leads, form submits, and things like that. So let's hop over. This is the Q&A portion. Hopefully you guys have some questions in there. I will stop sharing my screen and we will take a look and see what questions we have. Let's see here. Q&A. Are you able to add metrics from non-digital efforts? Good question. So you can mix those together, and we do have some that we mix together sometimes with like Tableau and things like that, but we are exporting the data from 6sense to add that together. I know that probably kind of answers it. It really just depends on where your source of truth is for your reporting. I think it's kind of difficult, but it also depends on how you're tracking that and kind of the results that you have. So like something like Tableau would work for that, but it just depends on where you're storing the data from your non-digital efforts. Hopefully that answered your question, Catherine. All right. How did you target the accounts with the specific ads? Good question. So within 6sense, once you build that segment, once you've gone through and filtered out on everything and then you put it together, you're able to create a segment. And that segment can be actionable immediately. Once it's built, you've got a little pop down and you click on it and it says like, take action. So you can create a 6sense display ad. You can push that audience over to sync with LinkedIn. You can push that audience over to sync with Facebook. And you can also push that over to sync with Google in a very unique way. And so once you've got it created, basically you choose the channel. Is this a display campaign? Is this something on LinkedIn you want to run as a lead gen campaign? Do you want to run it on Facebook? Or is it something you want to send over to Google and use as a custom audience for YouTube ads even? So once it's there, that's how you get those accounts within those specific ads. All right. We got another one. Is it possible to see which campaigns a company engaged with even without using the predictive model? Yes. So the predictive model is basically going to be a list of, those stages that I mentioned from awareness to purchase. And basically you can think of that as your funnel. Like, ours is sideways, and I tell everyone you flip it up and it's basically your marketing funnel. You don't need to have that to be able to see what campaigns a company engaged with. Within 6sense, you can see that throughout the dashboard. If you click, if you search for a company and you click on that campaign piece, you can see what campaigns they engaged with. There's other ways to pull it too. I know some people have different spreadsheets and pivot tables that they run sometimes, but within 6sense, it's fairly easy. Search for those accounts and you can see what campaigns they're in. You can also go into a campaign and see the accounts within that campaign and what they've done, how many impressions, how many clicks, and kind of what they've done there as well. So there's a few different ways to do it. You don't need predictive to do that. All right, Anonymous, been looking forward to more specifics on what AI predictions are based off of. Great question. I will say I don't really know. And by saying I don't know, I know pieces of what it's built off of, but everyone's model is unique. So whenever you start out with 6sense, if you go the predictive route, you go through a fairly intensive, I won't sugarcoat it, a fairly intensive setup where you are going to go and provide historical data for accounts that have entered your pipeline and accounts that have closed one. And our AI will go and take a look and start adding different weights and different percentages to different actions for those pieces. And eventually, this will be sorted out and used for your predictive model. I used to think of our predictive model very much as awareness. They're looking for some of our keywords. Consideration, they're looking for some of our branded keywords like 6sense ABM or Revenue AI. And then consider decision. They've been to our website. They've been to a few high intent pages. And then purchase. They've been to our website a lot and they're getting ready to buy. Well, that's a very simplified look, very much through the lens of a digital marketer. In between those stages, we've got things like, did they attend a webinar? Have they opened an email? Did they respond to an email? Has sales reached out to them? There's a lot of different signals that are playing a piece in where those accounts are moving. I will say, if you keep the ads on them and you keep after them, those accounts do move through the funnel, which is great to know. But the exact pieces of what moves those accounts is always hard to figure out. Hopefully that answers your question. Maybe more detail than you wanted, but hopefully that's good. All right. Any other questions? Anyone else have any questions about the 5 steps or anything else you just want to ask me about? Let's see. Got something in chat. Let's go through chat. I think I missed some here. What metrics data have you noticed have helped organizations develop more alignment? Great question. That is typically going to be looking at those accounts and the data around what's happened with those accounts, right? Going back to those campaigns, website visits, emails sent, and kind of what marketing has done around it, and then sales as well, sharing what they've done. Have they reached out to X amount of people in the buying committee? Have they, sent an email? Have they sent them an invite to an event? Things like that are really going to help kind of push those teams together. And then the data is going to be a lot of kind of what we looked at, right? Are the accounts being reached? Are the accounts being engaged? Are the accounts being targeted correct? A lot of that is going to help align those teams. Hopefully that answers your question. Target the accounts. We've answered that. Is your org using a multi-touch attribution model to attribute pipeline to different campaigns and sources? Great question. At 6sense, we're not crazy about attribution. We like some attribution. I'll be honest, I like attribution. But overall, that's not really a multi-touch. That's a pretty simplistic attribution method that we use to attribute pipeline to those campaigns and sources. I will say, like anyone else, if you've got Salesforce and you're tagging your UTMs correctly and you're going through and building reports and dashboards, you'll get a much more granular view there. Always recommend that. Okay, hopefully that answers that. How often do you recommend refreshing your campaigns? Let's see, there's a little bit more to that. Sorry, just taking me a second. Yeah, so audiences and campaigns. Typically for us, it depends on the kind of campaign you're running. We run a lot of campaigns that we call our always on campaigns, which, just briefly to get into, these are broken out by taking our top keywords and then aligning that with those in-market stages and matching that to content, everything from blogs to maybe a webinar, a hefty report, a case study, things like that. For those that we run that we call our always on, we refresh those every quarter. And that's a hefty, fairly big process because it's generally 24 campaigns with, 4 sets of creative for each one. And you can kind of get into why the creative team might not like getting emails from me and my team. It's a lot of work, but we do that every quarter for that. And then for anything else that we're running, it kind of just depends on the type of campaign. So like if we're running something that's, for a case study or something like that, we're just going for awareness, we probably don't need to refresh that. But anything always on, we look at every quarter. Let's see, what other questions have I not gotten? Yeah, so you can create reports with 6sense and Salesforce data. There's a lot of interesting ways to do that. I will say um, one unique thing that you can do with 6sense and Salesforce that I always like. Salesforce does integrate with 6sense, so you can pull in a lot of fields, even custom fields and things like that, and create segments based off of that. One of the more interesting ones that I always recommend, especially if you're using 6sense, is if you go through and create a segment of opportunities, and you even if you just go basic, and let's say you create a segment for open opportunities, create a segment for closed won opportunities, and look and see the journey that those accounts had overall as like a segment and not just like individual campaigns, and look for like, what content did they consume, what kind of campaigns hit them, what did they do more of. I think that's always a fascinating thing to do, and I absolutely recommend combining that data. So great question, really good use of 6sense and Salesforce. All right. Okay, please provide more detail on the dashboard, specifically the number of accounts are reached. Let's see here. Decrease from 126 before the campaign to 94 after it. Yeah, so that's a good one, and that's going to be kind of difficult to explain without opening up 6sense, but I'm going to try. So the majority of campaigns that we build, we do run with what we call that in-market stage. And typically I focus on one stage at a time. So how that could work would be there were 126 accounts in awareness stage before that campaign kicked off. And by the time the campaign finished, some of those accounts moved. And it's like I said, we don't know. I can't tell you exactly what is moving accounts from that AI model, but I can tell you that there's always movement. And so some of those accounts likely move to consideration, and some of those accounts might even have fallen out of awareness back to target stage. That is how I interpret that change. That would be the biggest move for that. So it really depends. All this stuff is so nuanced. It really depends on how you build your segments and how you run your campaigns. But it's very possible to run a campaign that has more accounts in it at the start and less accounts at the end. There's also, and we didn't get into this, but there's also very, very detailed reports you can do within 6sense that show you that movement, where you can go and you can see, okay, this segment over this time period, what happened? And you can see that accounts moved further down the funnel. You can see that accounts fell out. You can see kind of what they did. Hopefully that answers your question. Really good question. How do you know what accounts have been to your website? Well, with our tool, it's fairly easy. We've got different tags that you set up on your website, and these tags are basically used to identify the accounts that visit your website and then feed that data back in. So there's different ways to do it. You could do it through 6sense. There's also some pretty detailed integrations you can do with Tag Manager and Google Analytics, and you can also pull the data there. But that's kind of what 6sense does. We de-anonymize that website traffic down to accounts. So that's really our bread and butter, and one of the first things that we really started doing before our platform expanded. Yeah, and that's just kind of what we do. Let's see. We recently reviewed a few accounts that were in the purchase stage, but did not seem to have that much activity. Should all the activity be captured in the timeline view? Yeah, I won't say all of it. You should be able to capture a good amount of it, whether it's marketing campaigns, sales campaigns, things like that. You should be able to see that within that timeline view, or if you go back into that individual account. So if you know that account, pardon me just a second. If you know that account and you go look it up in your dashboard, just type it into that search bar up there on the right. You should be able to go in and see everything that's kind of happened and touched with that account. Like I said, it's AI, so there's different ways that it might be put into that purchase stage. It could be increased activity within marketing campaigns. It could be increased activity on your website. There's a lot of different places there that could be driving that. But I would take a look within the dashboard at that account individually first and go through all the different tabs and really get an idea of what they've done and what data we have on them. I would start with that. ABM programs, are they refreshed quarterly? Yes, they are. We one of the unique things about working at 6th Sense is we are ABM only and ABM always. And so any program that we run is an ABM program, and that is going to be refreshed quarterly. And that's just to keep, things up to date, get people looking at new ads, and as well as put some of our new content out there. We've got a great content team that is constantly producing new blogs, new guides, and new articles, trying to stay up to date with all the changes within AI and everything else that's going on. So we typically try and do that pretty quick. Let's see. Another one. All right, this is going to be a good one. How do you decode the IP when most of the people nowadays are working remotely? And those working corporate proxies like Zscaler, which make it hard to understand the firmographics. Good question. I won't pretend to understand all this. I am just the digital marketing guy. I like to feel like I'm tech savvy, but I'm not that tech savvy. I can easily get someone to reach out to you that can answer that question better than I. But I will say there's a lot of different things that we've done with our mapping that have allowed us to connect different people to accounts, right? So even if they're working remotely, when everything, I started in March 2020. So within, I think, my second week, the world was kind of slowly shutting down. People were moving to remote work more and more frequently. And a lot of people were doing that. And that was one of the big questions that we had. But with our graph and the way that we map these things back, we can map back people that work within a company to that company. And there's various different ways that we do that through IPs. Like I said, I won't get into too much of it and talk about it, but it works fairly well. And it could be through a device. It could be through a device that regularly is on an IP in a certain area. There's a lot of different ways that it's done, but it's doable and it's accurate. All right, let's see. Anything that I missed? I think that's about it. I know I went a little bit over, but thanks everyone for joining. And if you're interested, we have those future webinars coming up, and I highly recommend you join those and see kind of the next levels and what we do with 6th Sense. Thanks, everyone.